Medic 1. Today we got a little treat on the bench. It's a, let me give you the story that I got anyway. And grab my cylinder leak down tester and got this lawnmower on the bench, and as you can tell, it's brand new. It has not cut one single blade of grass. Customer brought it to me. He said he bought 3 of these at one time, and he serviced them out, put gas in all 3, put oil in all 3. 2 of them started right off and ran perfectly, and this one wouldn't start. So I've got the bail pulled back, and we're going to, I'll just show you real quick. This engine has no compression. So what we're going to do is a cylinder leak down test. I'll show you how to do that. So basically what you need to do first is pull the spark plug out. Go ahead and pull the spark plug boot off. Take your wrench, loosen up your spark plug, go ahead and unscrew that. Beautiful today. As you can tell, that spark plug has never had a fuel run through it or nothing. It has never sparked or even ran. It's a little wet because they've tried to use some starting fluid, I'm sure. Let's go ahead and get out the trusty cylinder leakage tester, and I'll show you all how to set this up. You can buy these anywhere. You can get them at an auto store. I think Harbor Freight sells one. This one just happens to be from Kohler Engines, way back. So it's pretty old, but it still works. Go ahead and get your test hose screwed in. As you can tell, it's got an O-ring here and an O-ring. This is 14mm threads, and this is what, 16 or 18? I can't remember what size spark plugs the bigger size is. But go ahead and just thread this in, and you don't have to over tighten it. Just thread it until it butts up against the O-ring, and just give it a little twist like that, and that's plenty. What you want to do, you want to hook your tester up to shop air. It can be at any PSI, 150, whatever. And what you want to do, you want to unlock your regulator, and you want to turn this clockwise until this goes all the way to set. We're not worried about this gauge right now. Actually, this gauge doesn't do anything. It just shows you what your shop air is. So just keep turning until it gets to set, all the way to 0, anywhere in that yellow. See, if you go a little bit too far past, you can turn it back the other way. And I like to get it as close to 0 as possible. Alright, so now what we're going to do is plug this into your hose that you have in your spark plug hole, and you're going to listen for air coming out. Pop the air filter off, and we can hear. I'm going to spin this motor over. So we have an abundance of air coming through the carburetor. So when I'm turning this engine over, that's telling me that the intake valve is not closing. So let's dig a little deeper and see what we can find. It's just 3 screws. Go ahead and pull the screws that hold the valve cover on, and let's just take a look and see what's going on here. This is a 5500 or a 550 series Briggs engine. And there we have the valves. So let's just look and see. I'm going to turn this engine over by hand and just look and see if the valves are opening and closing. And nothing wrong there. Oh man, hold on a second. We've got something going on with that intake valve. Let me get this rocker arm off and let me show you. It's a 5/16 or 8mm. Just go ahead and give it a loosen. Pull that off. Huh. As you can tell, let me get you off the tripod here just for a second. The valve spring is there, but the valve stem is not seated in the keeper. Let's pull that off easy so we don't lose a valve. Let's inspect that. Still got the assembly lube on it. Why did that valve come out of that keeper? I don't know, unless the shoulder of the valve itself man, that valve is not going. Real stiff, like really hard to push through that guide. It should be real easy. I hate to keep fiddling with this, but I don't know if y'all can see that or not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to squirt some carburetor cleaner down that valve guide and see if we can't get it loosened up. I've seen this happen on some FH 500V Kawasaki engines. The spring tension is so minuscule. See, just that little bit of wetness, that valve is freed up now. But that still doesn't explain why the valve keeper came off. Check that, you know, the edge around the valve stem. I can spin the valve in the guide. It's got a good sharp 90-degree edge all the way around. There's no reason for that to come off, unless it's a, you know, assembly issue. I just don't know. We're going to put it back together and see if she'll fire off. I'm going to put cylinder pressure to hold the valve closed while we reassemble the intake valve. Just go ahead and screw your hose back in. Let's go ahead and put your leak tester back on the hose. That time, let's see, what it tried to do was push the piston down in the bore. Now let's rotate this engine around by hand under here. Be careful. And I'm going to put the engine at top dead center, if you can, right there. Okay, with that valve is tightly closed. Just let it sit there. You can work with it all day now. This is a unidirectional spring. Just for the sake of sakes, I'm going to turn the keeper with the slot down. And let's reinstall the rocker arm. I know what's wrong with it. I know what's wrong with it. Dadgummit, why didn't I see that before? So whenever I went to put the rocker arm back on, I'm like, shit. I mean, excuse me. Beep. When I went to put the rocker arm back on, I noticed that the valve spring retainer is higher than the center part of the valve. I'm like, what the heck? Because what would happen was, what could have happened is that the rocker arm pushed down on the valve keeper and pushed it right off the valve. Let me show you why. This engine, take the other one off here. This engine was assembled from the factory without a valve stem cap. Luckily, I got a junk mower in the back here that's got one of these engines, and let's go grab one off of it and inspect it. Ain't that something? This is a manufacturer's defect. 100%. 100%. Briggs and Stratton. Oh, I got me a little bone pile going over here in the back of the shop. I think it's, yeah, this is the one with the bent crank. Get this Honda out of the way. Let's see. This is an old Murray. Yep, it's got a 500 engine on it too. Yeah, let's just pull this valve cover off here and I'll get the keeper out of this motor. Take this off. Yep, there's the keeper. One little old part. Got the customer fouled up, got me fouled up because I'm pissed off at Briggs and Stratton. Let's go put her back together. Good, good. Put our rocker arms back on. Whoops, sorry about that, the compressor kicked on. One thing I like about this engine is you cannot get your rocker arms mixed up, because they're actually different lengths. So what you'll do is show you, pretty self-explanatory. You look at your push rod length to this is shorter than this push rod to that, so you know your long one will go to your exhaust valve. Go ahead and tighten down your, just get them tight, because you'll have to finger tight, because you'll have to adjust them once we get the engine rolled around to top dead center. I'm going to go ahead and take this out of here so I can see the piston. I'm going to roll it around by hand. Give it a couple of turns, and I can't see the piston, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a blunt tool to go inside the cylinder, and we're going to turn it until it's at top dead right there. And we're going to go about just a little bit past. Okay. Let me start that over. I got messed up. So we got intake, compression. Okay, so that's where we want to be. I was on the bottom side of the stroke, not the top side. Okay, so as you can see, I'm wiggling the crank back and forth. So right there is top dead center. And go ahead and tighten down our rocker arms. We'll check our clearances. This one seems to be a little tight, so we're going to get the gauges. I'm going to see if I can find my feeler gauges. You know, it's obvious that the intake valve is going to be off because they tried to adjust the rocker arm with no valve stem cap. So the spec is 5, so we're just going to run it in there. I'm going to run the nut down until we have a light drag. A little bit more. That's about right there. Just want just light drag. And it's such a small footprint on the rocker arm to adjust. There we go. Just a light drag. Now just tighten your centered nut. You may have to hold the rocker arm itself, the nut, which I'm going to have to do. Let me get a 5/16 wrench. Guys, I'm going to put links to everything in this video, tool wise, parts wise. Okay, just tighten that. And do the same thing for the exhaust valve. I've already set it, so we're going to just tighten the center screw. Good to go. Throw the valve cover back on there and see if she'll fire up. Let's go ahead and tighten down your valve cover bolts. Hey, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. And what the heck, there's that little bell thing down there that you can hit to get all my notifications. If you don't hit the bell, you may not get my next video, so please do that. Okay, let's do the leak down test again and see where we're at. Okay, so I reset my gauge to set. I put the spark plug lead back in, not the lead but the hose, and now I'm going to spin the engine over by hand, and we're going to watch this one creep up. And it'll be hard to pull this engine through because you're building compression. If you're wondering what that horn sound is the breather in the engine. As you can tell, this engine has about 5%. It's brand new, nothing sealed. I mean, you know, you hadn't ran the engine, and I guarantee you, if I take the oil cap off, it'll stop. Yep. I hear just a little bit of hissing through the oil cap. But like I said, this engine has never ran. That's funny, isn't it? What's happening is, you know, you have to break in an engine, so you might be getting a little leakage past the rings until they seat and whatnot. But let's go ahead and I've already checked the oil. Tighten that back down. You're going to have a little buzzing sound coming through the reed valve on the breather. But yeah, that's a healthy engine. You don't want anything past like 20 or 30%. If you have an engine that's 20 or 30%, it's starting to get a little sick. So let's get it cranked up and see if it'll start. I'm not going to blame the valve stem being stiff in the head. I'm going to say that was assembly lube, but we got it freed up anyway. Got that assembly lube washed down into the cylinder anyway. So here, let's do a cold start and see what it does. It's going to smoke a little bit until it gets all the oil burned out of it from the assembly process. Since I cranked a brand new mower. Check back with me in just a minute after I let it run for about 15 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes. The smoke has cleared. This mower's ready to go back in service. If you have any questions about 4-cycle engines, especially Briggs and Stratton, let me know. Mower Medic 1. Y'all have a great day.